I'm going to start with a torus, right, which is a representation of infinity. So you have this contracting element and then an expansive element which feeds back in on itself. But for illustration purposes, I'm going to leave that bit out. This is negative and this is positive. In the center, you've got an equilibrium of two forces. Now, to represent a circle and its diameter and radius without using new numbers and using geometry, we can draw what's commonly known as a Star of David inside it. And draw it here. Right, and this is the equilibrium between these two forces. This one on its own is nothing, and this one on its own is nothing. It's only here where everything is manifest, where the two forces exist simultaneously. Past, future, present, everything only ever happens in the present, right? So to take a side view of this to make it easier to understand, and I'm not so good at drawing, so bear with me, but there's your 1 dimension, 2 dimension, and 3 dimensions of space. 3, yeah? Okay. Now can you see how there's a cube there? That's one face, that's the other face, and that's the top face. So we're drawing a cube. When you draw a cube in 2 dimensions, you go like that, right? And then you go like that, and kind of like that, yeah? You follow me? Right, and you just connect those lines up, look. And that's what's going on here, right? So, anyway, how we see the world is in 2 dimensions, because we only ever see everything like face on. But it's not until you walk around an object that it gets its 3D nature, right? There's your 3 dimensions, right? Often you hear 4th dimension being time, right? Time is more like a measurement of a continuum. So let's swap time out for consciousness, and we'll place the 4th dimension going right through the middle of that there. Let's call that time or consciousness, we would call it. Do you see now how the observer is what projects the 2D into the cube? The 3D is the 4th dimension, right? In the 3 dimensions, just like I've just drawn, this is the 4th, and because this is flowing and flowing back round, that's why you have a definite arrow of time in a certain direction. That's why time only ever flows in one way, one direction. This is Eve, and this is Adam. But in Genesis, Adam is referred to as them to begin with, and Adam gives you atom, meaning undivided, right? Adam is referred to as them to begin with, and God, this is Adam, whole thing, and God takes a rib and produces Eve, and that is when he becomes a him and she becomes a her. Now, this here, this field is a tree, if you can see that. Just put leaves and roots on for illustration, right? That's the tree of knowledge. knowledge, of good and evil, of good and evil, right? Of charitable is expansion and outward and giving to people and thriving. Selfishness is inward and taking and bringing to the self, right? Good and evil. Also, if I draw two interlocking circles, there's a vortex, look, same shape, and then, you know, this goes round like that. That's your torus field. There's your apple. In the Garden of Eden. And when they indulged, as in metaphorically, why can't I do that? As in they ate, which is the material aspect of something that's spiritual, beyond material, metaphysical. When they ate, became materialistic. By eating of the apple, they knew themselves as male and female, and they were naked. It's all metaphor. And they knew that by bringing together the male and the female aspect, you get life, right? And then that is where the fall comes from, because when you know that you're one with infinity, and the identity, the ego, is an illusion, it's a limitation within the unlimited, it's a focal point, you know then that suffering doesn't matter, whatever doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, and you live in heaven, right? Heaven and hell are a state of mind. When they ate of that and became materialistic and indulged of that knowledge, materialistic, so when they became materialistic, right, they were wrapped up within their ego selves, and they tilled the ground with the sweat of his brow and become dust, and you know, all these types of things that come later on in Genesis, right? And then you've got how the father and the mother and the child, right? This is referred to as Christ, the body of Christ. It's through him that we may live, right? This is the present. We give presents on Christ's birthday. He's the preserver. That's how the child is also the child of God, but is also God at the same time, the Son of God. And when you refer to stuff like he dies so that we may live, well, this thing that's infinite manifests as a limited being, and that's what gives us life. But it also means this infinite being has to experience death. He dies so that we may live. It's not being, it's not conscious, it's not a thinking thing. It's just metaphors and allegory to describe a functioning of reality, and that this infinite reality itself is manifests as these things, not with thought, but just as a fact of the qualities of infinity, because infinity, right, is every possibility that could ever exist. So it's unlimited, but it's made of individual possibilities making up unlimited. So it's both limited and unlimited at the same time. So these are the qualities of infinity, or all, or God, or the universe, whatever you want to call it. There's the limiting aspect, and there's the aspect that's becoming unlimited. But this never wins, and this never wins, right? It exists in perfect harmony here. Okay, so these are the qualities of infinity manifesting fractally over and over and over again, like reflections of itself on every level. And these religious texts, these books, are allegory, metaphor, so that the lowest in society, children or people with not much IQ, and the highest in society, can all understand these principles of reality on a very basic and fundamental level, by either, you know, anthropomorphizing them or treating them into, or turn them into legends, tales, whatever you want to call it, right? So you know, you've got in Vikings, you've got Yggdrasil, right, the tree, and we live in Midgard in the center, right? And you got the dwarves that just mine for gold, materialistic down the bottom. And then at the top you've got the Asgardians, right? You following? Now you see your Star of David in the centre. 6 points. God rests on the 7th day. 7 colours of the rainbow, 7 days of the week, 7 continents, 7 musical notes, right? 7 colours of the rainbow is the rainbow bridge. It's the bridge between worlds. So this knowledge has been known about for a very long time. And what materialist, whoever they are who are running things at the moment, what they do is they want us only thinking about things materially. And so everything that we know about our ancient cultures, we've been taught to believe through movies and stuff that they literally believed the world was on a tree and there's a guy in the clouds called Thor who shoots lightning bolts at people. Nah, that's not it. They never believed that. It's a way to understand scientific knowledge at a fundamental level by turning them into people. You can give the qualities of electricity, a fundamental principle thing that is existing in reality, and you create a human character with all the qualities that electricity has, and then people can understand this by understanding themselves, which is easier than trying to understand some concept or some scientific terms or some type of equation and something like that, because everybody understands people to a certain degree anyway, but everyone can sort of understand that. But it's the same for every other god going back in time and all this different stuff, because people have two parts of their mind. They got logic and they got intuition, right? And they're one whole. They're supposed to be used as one whole. So logic is this is there, and then this is the next in the sequence, and this is the next in the sequence, right? Because we can see that is increasing by size, right? And that's there, and that's there, and that's there, right? Intuition is not just seeing between the lines, but it's like, what meaning can I derive from that, right? So nowadays that is reserved for just like literary works, and this is reserved for our thinking brains, what we think about science and how we understand the world, right? It's just logic, right? But actually it's a duality that we need to have both. And so in the past, because people did use both, the information systems they used, language, stories, whatever, were both. So it's an intuitive way to understand something logical, and you can see this over and over again fractally in different cultures, and there's evidence for this everywhere. So that reality that we live in is Israel, Isis the female, Ra the masculine, and Elohim meaning both together, right? Israel. Okay, I'll draw the Star of David again, right? Draw there to there, and I connect everything this time to there, yeah? And I connect these ones and those ones there and those ones there. I know it's a bad drawing, but you've got I'll make sure I've done it right. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You get 12, right? 12 tribes of Israel, which is why we use 12 of time and measurements, and that's why 13 is representative a lot of the time of God and the sun, because 13 in this type of understanding is the same as 7, straight through the middle. And so we have 12 divisions. A lot of imperial measurements, they allow us to retain these kind of understandings, even as people become more materialistic, where it's more about measurements and quantities and things like that, because there's a natural rise and fall in society where our mind changes from material to spiritual being metaphysical principles beyond the physical. But that's the 12 tribes of Israel, and that's why we're using time 60s, 6s all the time. Also with the torus field, again, you've got the highest point before it comes back down is a circle, a middle point is a circle, and the bottom point is a circle, right? And each one of those, like I said before, can be measured with the Star of David, which gives you 6, 6, 6, which is the number of the beast, the reality itself. 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, carbon makes hexagons. Also, just do this really quickly. There's a middle point, right at the torus. Baptism, being passed through water and then back again to bring you into this world. See? Through there and then back down and back through again. So it's baptism is passed through the waters, which is pH 7. 7 again, see 7. And it's in the middle of the scale. And then you've got your acids and your alkalines. Might be the other way around, I'm not sure. And there's different levels to it. Water is an exact reflection of this force in the middle of balance here, and that's why if you use water on a speaker or anything and pass a sound wave through it, it resembles that sound wave perfectly, right? It's why it has one of the highest, or if not the highest, I can't remember, surface tensions, right? No one really understands why water, when it goes cold, it expands. Well, what's happening is there's your middle bit, right? Okay. So because it represents this perfectly, and because it's a duality between the two, and it's both at the same time, when it's cold, it goes. So when it's positive, it's also negative. When it's negative, it's also positive. That's one reason. Second one is that when it contracts, look, it goes inward, it makes this shape, right? It makes snowflakes, stars of David. When it goes outward, it turns into droplets, right, which are more shaped like this, but that's because it's being pulled up by this force, right? See where I'm coming from? Whereas here it can only go so far to there because this force is pushing back, so it just goes flat, meets this force, makes that shape, right? Another way to show something is 3 is reality, right? That's just reality itself. You've got your positive, your negative, and your positive and your negative, right? In the middle, making one whole. So 3 is reality. 6 is physicality. It's the point in the middle of that circle that gives the structure to reality itself, right? That's your physicality. So reality, that's everything. This is your physicality. And your 9 is your metaphysicality, right? Because when you draw a circle, that's one whole, right? It's fullness, it's continuum. And I do 1, because we work in tens with our numerology system, so 10 is a whole, right? It's almost like as we count up to 10, we're counting up to one whole, yeah? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 makes the whole, right? And then that's 10, and then we start again, right? Now if I take this and I just stop at 9, infinite, because it never quite gets there, it goes on forever. See? Which is why these two are the same. 6 is just 9 upside down. See? Because these are the two parts of our reality. Physicality, the matter, and the metaphysical, the energy, or you could say vibration, because anyway, that's the spiral going through everything. And also, I'm not very good at drawing, but pentagram. This is a human being. There's his head, and his arms, and his legs, right? If I take this and I do, actually, I'm going to try and remember to do this. So there, and do across there. I've now got the Star of David again, but I've actually got one of these upwards and one of these downwards. Male and female. It's a male and female together. Now, why is that important? Because the word 5 comes from phi, the golden ratio, right? 1.618. The pentagram encodes this. Now, this isn't a very accurate drawing, so it's going to be hard to see this, but it's 1.618 ratio all the way across infinitely, see? So it's itself a representation of the spiral. And the fact that this contains a representation of one spiral and another spiral that are opposites to each other shows you how this is the torus with the two spirals. And that's why they try and make this like, is it evil or a load of nonsense, right? And that's how we're made in a reflection of God. Like human beings, just like water is a reflection of that middle bit. Human beings are the, and I don't believe we're animals, but let's just say we're the animals that are like pH 7. Like we're bangs back in the middle, so we can go up and we can go down. That's why we have free will. That's why we have the ability to manifest what we want to manifest. That's what makes us separate to everything else. That's what it means to be made in the image of God, right? But also the phi symbol there as well, that like that, you can draw it another way by doing that. That's what it looks like, tilted to another dimension.
Mathematicians call this pattern the torus. The energy in a torus flows in through one end, circulates around the center, and exits out the other side.
The invisible voice of life shows itself in the material world through an interplay of numbers and form. These primal archetypal forms are the template and seeds of life. The sacred geometry expressed in the Fibonacci series allows us to clearly see this invisible other world that is the mysterious source of life. To better understand the role of the Fibonacci series and organic geometry in the world around us, we met with Michael Schneider, author of A Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe. Michael demonstrates the dynamic presence of the Fibonacci sequence in the living, growing world.
Well, the Fibonacci numbers refers to a sequence of numbers that grow by continual expansion, but a very special balanced growth expansion, and the mathematical definition of them really is an archetypal pattern. Starts off with the numbers 0 and 1. 0 sort of acts like a seed in a sense. 0 and 1, and the rule is that each next term is the sum of the two previous terms. So 0 plus 1 make 1, 1 plus 1 make 2, 1 plus 2 make 3, 2 and 3 make 5, 3 and 5 make 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, 233, and endless. But it's an expansive pattern that shows organic growth patterns that occur all through nature.
The invisible Fibonacci spiral shows itself in the visible world, in the nautilus shell, the sunflower, and the branching of trees.
This mathematical sequence charts nature's progress of organic spiraling growth through self-accumulation. The appearance of this sequence, embodied by the Fibonacci spiral or golden spiral in plants, animals, or solar systems, tells us that the Fibonacci sequence and phi ratio underlie an internal harmony, excellence, and dynamic balance during the inevitable growth and dissolution processes. It is the play of life itself, clothed in the four states of matter. These characteristics are the open secret of balance of animal horns, seashells, plants, and galaxies. For example, as the chambered nautilus creature grows larger, the gland that exudes shell material also grows, building a widening shell. The shell's golden spiral shape maintains the same center of gravity at any size, so the nautilus need not learn how to balance itself as it matures. The same is true for the growing horns of a ram. As the horn material accumulates, growing larger and more massive, Its golden spiral shape maintains the same center of gravity. Thus, the ram need not adjust its posture throughout life to uphold its growing horns. Similarly, the tree that puts out branches and leaves in spiral staircases up and around their respective trunks can get enormously large, yet the tree always balances, no matter how massive and complex it grows to be.
And so any kind of organic expansion will benefit from this kind of growth that incorporates balance, physical balance. It will pack the most seeds in the least space. And whenever you find these Fibonacci numbers, you also find spirals. And the benefit of the spiral is, of course, organic, expansive growth in a kind of a fashion that will also maximize all the benefits of the seed properties and so forth. The way they show up in the plant world is rife with these numbers. For example, in this artichoke flower, I will simply, let's see, I'll draw a mark so we know where we started on this, and I'll count this row of petals as one row. And what I'm going to do is count the numbers of parallel rows of petals. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then back to the beginning. So there are 8 rows leading in this direction. But each petal plays a role in 2 directions. So I can also think of these as spiraling this way. And if I count the numbers of parallel rows here, we'll count that as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and back to the beginning. So there are 8 in this direction, 5 in that direction. That's what you find throughout nature. 2 consecutive Fibonacci numbers composing the same structure. And what this does, what this number pattern does, is it gives perfect balance to the structure as it's growing. Not as a static structure, but these Fibonacci numbers and the spiral, the logarithmic organic spiral that occurs with them, balances through growth, transformation, expansion. And that's the beauty of this. It's balanced through growth and change, through these numbers. It's an organic expansion from that, you might say, 0 seed to as large as you like, but it's always going to have a self-resembling property. It's the closest, the logarithmic spiral is the closest definition you can get to a definition of life.
Have you ever noticed the many religious tributes there are to the pine cone? They are seen all over throughout history, spanning from ancient civilizations to modern-day religion and spiritualism. But what makes the pine cone so special? The courtyard at the Vatican has a giant statue of a pine cone. The staff of the Pope also has a pine cone on it. There are also a lot of decorations inside the Vatican that depict the pine cone. The pine cone is found in many ancient works of art. Even here, in an ancient Roman bronze statue, shows the thumb with a pine cone on it. The pine cone is shown in early Mesopotamian and Egyptian hieroglyphics. Ancient Buddhist architecture and art closely mimic the pine cone. Buddha is even shown to have hair shaped like a pine cone. Here, the goddess Shiva has her hair worn in the shape of a pine cone. The Greek god Dionysus has a pinecone on his staff. The same is true for Bacchus, the Greek god of drunkenness and revelry.
The Ouroboros is an ancient symbol depicting a serpent or dragon eating its own tail, a symbol of cyclical time, a continual renewal of life, death, and rebirth, leading to immortality or enlightenment. It's a widespread symbol of the all in all, the totality of existence, infinity, and the cyclical nature of the cosmos. In pre-Columbian Central America, Quetzalcoatl was sometimes depicted as biting its own tail. The mother of Quetzalcoatl was the Aztec goddess Quetzalcoatl, the Lady of the Serpent. Quetzalcoatl's father was Mixcoatl, or Cloud Serpent. He was identified with the Milky Way, the stars, and the heavens in several Mesoamerican cultures. Some ancient texts refer to the Serpent of Light residing in the heavens, a light which also surrounds the earth, as well as all living beings such as people, a universal energy force, but not quite electricity or magnetism. In Gnosticism, the serpent symbolized eternity of the soul. The image of the serpent as an embodiment of wisdom transmitted by Sophia was an emblem especially used by those sects that are Ophites, or serpent people. The serpent was one of the earth animals associated with the cult of Mithras, as well as the Magi.
Just like Orthumbla, the primordial cow of Norse mythology, the Zoroastrians had a primeval cow, which comes into existence in the middle of the earth, along with the primeval man. She is called Gavevodata, and although she is killed, the world is repopulated with animals made from her bone marrow and organs. Both of these myths, in fact all Indo-European myths, come from a common Aryan origin. The Proto-Indo-European Genesis myth has been reconstructed by comparing all the different mythologies. The Aryans believed the progenitors of mankind were two twins, just like the Anglo-Saxons had Hengist and Horsa, or the Romans had Romulus and Remus. The Aryan twins of mythology were called Manu, meaning man, and Yemu, meaning twin. Manu and Yemu travel through the cosmos with the primordial cow, and then decide to create the world. Manu sacrifices either Yemo or the cow, and with help from the paternal sky god and the storm god, builds the world from the sacrificial remains. Manu thus becomes the first priest, and establishes the practice of sacrifice. The sky gods then present cows to the third man, Trito, who loses it to a three-headed serpent, but later defeats this dragon and becomes the first warrior. This is also the origin of all dragon-slaying myths.